Just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the two of us. All right.
Super
Hi,
nice.
guys. Well, if you notice, we normally have a lot of people here, and well, sadly, schedules and everything, and a few tech issues. So you just got two of us for this particular episode. And today we're going to be actually discussing, of course, ship theft and one of my favorite things on how this leads to white collar pirates.
Yeah. And we also obviously had the problems on the forums over the week that a lot of people heard some stuff out of context, and it's kind of blew up a bit there, and I was pretty sure it was going to be how we originally thought it was going to be, and yeah, that was kind of confirmed on Friday. So yeah, but there was a huge uproar. I was kind of surprised. This community really does jump the gun, doesn't it?
Jump the gun? Seriously, I think they don't just jump the gun. They're there before the gun manufacturer even makes the gun. And that's the case of Star Citizen here. They hear this and they're like, oh, end of the world, piracy's dead, and it. Of course it's not. They have to implement it somehow because right now they don't currently have the systems in place to be able to make what they want to happen. So this is what we're going to be living with until they make it happen.
Chris kind of said way back when he always wanted so you could steal ships. So I thought it'd be kind of weird if they kind of did a U-turn on that regard. And it also kind of take you out of context of some of his other games because you were able to... I think it was one of the other games you'll be able to steal ships as well that he made, but I could be wrong in that regard, and I mixed him up with another game. But
not too familiar with that.
Yeah, he's made a lot of games. He didn't quite invent the genre, but I think he definitely made
it was the best of the genre.
Yeah, the industry standard, as Hayes would say if he was here. But I guess we should actually quickly mention that, yeah, Hayes is really tired, he's been worked really hard, and Algrid's kind of having internet issues, so that's why they're not here this week.
So, looking at this, so what am I talking about white collar pirates? Well, one of the things I'm wanting to talk about in this case is twofold. A culture of piracy that we may see actually come out of this game because of the experience in the early iteration. Because think about it this way. Right now, when the first iteration of piracy is, it's only going to be first session. You're going to have to quickly go there, get the ship scrapped to make money off of it, or just take a joyride. This is, in a way, going to lead to incentivizing the extortion market. And there's two forms of white-collar piracy. One form, which is people are going to get used to this kind of method. I think you might actually see something unlike Eve, where people try to steal the vessels. They learn to extort, and you see a new level of extortion and skills that become out of this.
Yeah, look in a weird way though. If you kind of like think it through, it's actually cleaner if you sell those ships rather than steal them and keep using them. If you just scrap them and then turn it into cash and therefore into a new ship, that is cleaner. It's like it's clean money. It's been laundered and it's clean. Where if you steal a ship, you're going to have to go through that whole process and of rebadging it or whatever to get it, to make it a legitimate ship again. That's either going to be almost just as expensive, or you've got to continually go around and signal the law people, and you're going to get in trouble there. So I still think the way, even if they did make it so you couldn't, and we now know they're not, I don't think it would entirely be a bad thing. Just it's not as bad as people made out.
Some of the griefing in a way, and it'll bring it to the more smart pirate. Because again, if I go to you and say, "Hey, you're gonna give me your cargo," and I just steal your cargo and leave your ship, or leave part of your cargo and take that, and I don't have to fight for it, that's an easy job for me. And if I do take ships, it like you said, it makes a lot more sense to go out there and launder it by just having it scrapped and going, because you don't have to go through all that whole ID issue. And with the whole ID issue, there's one thing that a lot of people really haven't thought about. How much value are you actually going to get from your scrap versus selling a whole ship to a dealer like that who's already selling it at a markdown?
Sorry, my eye is now adjusting after I took that off. I've got all this white light in my eye. It's really weird. Anyway, yeah, look, I kind of agree with what you've said there. I think it's kind of getting back to the whole point of jumping the gun. We've seen this a lot, and I think it's still that nature of development. People don't realise it's a iterative process, and that they talk about things like the tier 1 implementation and moving on, because people just don't get it. Like, I remember the last time that Will, what was his name? Will Maiden? Is that his name? Will Maiden?
Yes,
that jumped
Will
the gun,
Maiden.
that
Something
started
like
this all off. The last time when he was talking about the golf ball swing for scanning. Do you remember that? Same thing as this time. They just, oh my god, the sky's falling.
Well, people say the sky's falling when they talk about the early alpha UEC for ships. I guarantee you they're going to explain more details about that, and people are going to be like, this isn't what I expected, or this isn't what I wanted, or this wasn't what the hype in my opinion was for something that's just the basic iteration to test the basic steps. So I bet we're going to see a big thing with that, and people need to remember again, it's baby steps, people. Baby steps. Normally we wouldn't even be seeing this in a game right now. We'd be getting this 2 years down the road before we even got our hands on it.
Absolutely. And I can't really, like, I'm seeing a similar thing. Just to give an example, there's a game at the moment that I'm playing that's in alpha called Hunt Showdown, that's been popping up on streams and stuff like that. Very buggy, and it crashes, and just heaps of complaints. It's like we're our own worst enemy in a way, because as soon as we complain about how something is that buggy, and they get all these complaints, it makes it easier for the developer just to hide it until it's completely utterly ready and then release it.
It makes them want to do that.
Yeah, we want that behind the scenes, but we want it to be awesome at the same time, and that just doesn't. It's just not possible.
Well, the thing that's even worse is we give a double standard to AAA publishers. A serious double standard. Look at Bethesda. You get a Bethesda game first day, you're gonna want that hot fix like that comes out fairly quick. Or look at pretty much any AAA game, you will run into bugs. Yeah, it's a little bit more polished usually, but some of those games lately have been rather buggy when they come out.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It really, it's the same with Blizzard too. Like, think of Diablo. Now, Diablo when it first came out was a bit. Let's be honest, Diablo 3 I'm talking about here was a bit shit, but I didn't really ever hear anything about it. I never really heard like media
people
reports
accepted
saying,
it.
Yeah, they kind of accepted it because it was Blizzard. Like, they make great stuff, always make great stuff, so it can't possibly be bad.
But yeah. Star Citizen, heaven forbid,
because they don't have
early
any
access scam.
Yeah, don't have any reputation, and they're going on because it's got the word Kickstarter assigned to it. Every other Kickstarter game, there are a lot of bad examples, and fortunately that Kickstarter tag is the only thing that has reputation that carries over.
Yes. It's kind of a sad thing that we've learned to accept bugs from AAA publishers who should be giving us polished products. Yet when we get early access titles that with early betas and alphas and things like that, we are like, we do the exact opposite. We're like, this is a buggy mess. This game's irredeemable. And
it's probably one of the few things, honestly, that I actually kind of agree with Disco Lando on, is there's always new people coming into the game, and they're the people that really need to be brought up to speed of the development. I'm almost, instead of every time a developer comes reintroducing like we've never met him before, that's the stuff he needs to talk about. Quite frankly, reminding people this is in development, and he does do that. And I actually never really kind of complain when he does that, because I think that's one thing he needs to push. And as for staff, they just need a staff page, and people can go and see what they do. Check out our staff page, and done. Move on.
Well, one of the things that's really nice about Star Citizen and early access, and pretty much any early access game that I've been a part of, is it's a really nice community growing experience.
Oh,
because you see a lot of unique things develop, and sometimes entirely unique ways of going about different things that probably wouldn't have appeared if they didn't grow with the different mechanics going in, which goes back to like what I was saying with white collar crimes and piracy, more of an extortionist angle. You might actually see something more like your extortionist angle, or more of a pirating instead of keeping ships, ditching ships being the new MO, because that's what people are used to. So even when the new mechanic comes in, people are like, well, we have these set things here. You're going to see a lot more of that versus the other way around. And as far as insurance fraud goes, I think you're actually going to see that actually maybe morph into a entire new branch of white collar crimes that you have entire organizations devoted to it. Because think about it, you do that, you get your javelin back, you have a javelin and you scrap it. I'm not talking about giving it to someone. I'm talking about taking your ship and scrapping it just so you can. It may actually outweigh the extra cost of the insurance too, because that's the other question. If they said, oh, we'll have a scaling insurance, you start reclaiming it too much. I'm like, okay, how much is it going to scale and how fast? Because I can see a profit loss thing right there with someone scrapping it up to a point where it's getting to the point where it's not going to be profitable, and then forgetting it, letting it drop back down, and then doing it again.
Yep. And I think eventually they'll put systems in place that if you are regularly scrapping to the same people and stuff like that, and the way they'll probably do that is just scripts, and when it's done regularly in the insurance, it'll be like, oh, the insurance is picked up and you keep doing this same thing over and over, it's a scam, so they'll clamp down on you. So I think that'll be more towards the end of the whole process. But one thing that you might not have thought of as well is it all of a sudden brings ships like Reclaimers and Crucibles into piracy, in that regard. Do you see where that's going? Because before it was, oh, I'm a salvager and oh, I'm going to repair and make sure all my friends are great. But now they're quite valid tools for scammers or pirates or whatever you want to call these white collar criminals, where they they'll
have a legitimate base with no crime stat.
You could legitimately bring a genuine vendor in and say, oh, we need this ship scrapped, and they don't even realize that they're helping a criminal enterprise,
or they don't care because they're getting paid enough.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's actually one of the big things that I'm kind of looking forward to seeing, because I would actually like to see, instead of just the pure criminal aspect, the actual more like business, like well-to-do aspect, where you have no crime stat associated with something that's completely and totally guilty. Because I think that would be interesting player-driven content. Imagine if they think someone's doing this and they actually send a player to actually investigate that.
No, that's interesting.
Because I think that's something that they could physically do if someone's starting to do it. Sends a real person to be a PI.
Well, they've stated you can almost do every job in the game, and I think it will just be a matter of time. And in fact, I actually can see people, like, you know how you get grammar Nazis in real life? I can see people anal enough that would want to do that. Do you know? That's their thing. They're akin to tax collectors. They're like, I want to be the guy that goes and fucks over the pirates. Excuse my French, but you know what I mean. So he goes in there and he just, you guys are scammers. I'm gonna call you out, the whistleblower type of thing. So it's all
the possible. Undercover sting operation. I bring in my reclaimer for your contract.
Yeah, you get undercover cops. Same thing. Yes. It could be one of those. So it's all possible. And a lot of it will come through emergent gameplay anyway. It'd just be. I'm starting to think, like, when you start to think of deeper ideas like this, is actually human players dobbing them into GMs, and the GMs like play a role. So the GM might actually be able to push that through to the police and send the police to rock up and stuff like that. I think in most games the GMs do stuff technically behind, but I actually think that there'll be a way in Star Citizen for them to control AI. So to give an example would be, say you're scamming, and I go to the GM and go, hey, this guy's scamming, he can go, all right, so they're doing the wrong thing, and he puts a bounty hunt hit out on them. and says these are scammers, they need to be taken out.
That actually would be a really cool set of mechanics. And the thing is, all of this was brought about by one little comment. An entire possible industry could come in for something that everyone blew out of control, and it will be an interesting sub element. It's actually a lot more interesting than people think. And combined with the fact that you can keep the ship if you want to take the risk and all the trouble later on, that just makes it more interesting.
Well, quite frankly, having multiple options or multiple ways how to do things, you and I both know as computer users, and I'm sure the audience is the same, being able to do the same thing in Windows 3 different ways is really helpful. So the more the better. Same thing with control schemes, where you want mouse, keyboard, joysticks, HOTAS, VR,
double joystick.
Yeah, double, yeah, all that stuff. So the more ways we can do different forms of gameplay through the same profession would be awesome. And quite frankly, if you're in a pinch, you might have to run the ship away and destroy it. You might have time to convert it. There's obviously going to be pros and cons to each. You might want to steal a vehicle and then use that vehicle to go rob a bank. Like that type of thing.
Well, the question I have is, could you, in theory, actually have that whole ID, the valid whole ID, if you steal it in time before the actual game sets it off? Because I think that would actually be interesting if they had a time limit. Like, you had to have the player actually report it, because then just imagine if you actually stole something like that. You took someone's vehicle, robbed the bank, and now that person's...
Well, bringing this back around to piracy and stuff too is, look, if you're hacking someone, what if you just want to clone their ID? And then I clone their ID, and then I go attack their enemy. Or attack someone to make them their enemy.
I've always thought that there should be a mechanic that hides you have the ability to maybe hide your ID, your HUD. When it comes up HUD, you can see it's a vessel. You have the name of the vessel, but not necessarily the person. Because I've always wondered, how in the world, crime stat wise, do you get a crime stat? Like, let's say I'm strafing a guy on a planet when he can't even know who I am.
Yep. All right, I see where you're going with that. All right, well, this is where I see it going, and this is a total guesstimation, but you tell me if I'm wrong. Eventually, when you have a ship and you name it, it'll show you the name of the ship and not the name of the pilot. And that way, when you have multi-crew, your names are hidden, but the ship is what's shown. So going back to what I said about stealing someone's ID, you can steal the ship of... So if I have two hammerheads as an example, I can steal the ID of the nice guy hammerhead and put it on my hammerhead, and then go use my hammerhead to attack their allies, and their allies are like, what, they're turning on us, what's going on? And it starts a whole war. Again, a part of the espionage / covert op stuff. That is the type of thing that has come through, and they'll have to go back.
The reputation.
They'll have to go back through sensors and stuff like that, or sensor logs, and look through them and look for discrepancies to see if it really was them that attacked and stuff like that. There'll be lots of little clever things that they put in like that, that I think will be really interesting.
It's good depth. It really is, because that type of depth will continuously create content that people will want to play. And it'll also create new jobs, and it will also mean less work for them. To be fully fair, if they create a system in which the players are creating half their own content for them, that's great. And honestly, they need to do... I think they're going to do a system like you're talking about, because they want a reputation in a way, like the Millennium Falcon. You have an attachment to it, or reputation. Imagine if you have a particular Polaris out there, or Hammerhead, or Idris, or a particular ship that has a particular nasty reputation of wrecking everything that gets in its path. People are going to be, oh no, it's not going to be, oh no, there's Execute. It's going to be, oh no, there's
well, it's
insert name here.
It's kind of akin to changing number plates on cars, isn't it? In a way, it's that same thing. So, remember the Bond one where you used to flip the number plates? Something akin to that. So they might have one with like an ID they've stolen that they used to rob banks or whatever you want to call it, or raid other ships or whatever, and then they flip it back to a good one when they're and they even if they have a third one just for transporting the goods out of the system. So you could have multiple IDs that you can switch between. But then there has to obviously be a counter system to that. Which will be the
I
scanning.
think there's always a counter system, and they really need to have that counter system because, again, right now you do something, you accidentally bump a ship on Olisar, or let's say you're in the middle of nowhere. I accidentally bump someone's vehicle in the middle of a planet with almost where you can't. Your sensors are obviously not that good because I can't see ships like more than 15 kilometers away. There you go, and you get a crime stat instantly. That should not happen.
Yeah. Again, it comes back to what we've been saying since the beginning of the show. A lot of these are first-time implementations. They're definitely going to change. And I think if you're looking at it, and I'd say this to everyone, not just you, if you're looking at it like you have just then and gone, this seems wrong and it seems a bit broken, then obviously it's going to change. Give it 12 months, give it 2 years, and if you don't see it improving, that's when you complain about something. And honestly, we know right now 3.0 is really just that foundation. That is the early access, so to speak. And if you look at other games that have become an early access, and a really great example of that is Ark, Survival Evolved. Look how much that's changed over its development. That
a lot.
100 times better than it was when it started. Hundreds more dinosaurs than it started.
You can't recognize it.
Yeah.
It's really not recognizable. It went from like almost a Rush knockoff to something that's completely another unique.
And they make mistakes still, but they fix them. It just takes time. And every game that is in early access, and I can think of another one, which is Rust. Rust went back and they had to remake that game from scratch. So their developers, they have to develop. They have to make mistakes like human beings to move forward. And we've even seen it in Star Citizen already. The flight model's gone through several changes where it went too slow and then it's gone fast and then
But that's where players come in. And that's one of the things that makes early access games really good when they come out, because they already have been run through actual people trying to actually break and exploit the system, where you have developers thinking about the system on how it's supposed to be and maybe some sneaky thoughts on how things can be exploited.
Yep.
But you never know until you actually release it to the public, and people will find every single flaw, nick, or cranny some way or somehow.
Yeah. So there's always going to be, like, as this, who was I talking to? It might have been Albert, I could be wrong here. But we were talking about how, if you look at the way Star Citizen's kind of being kickstarted, a lot of the people, not all, I'm being generalising here, are older people because they have the funds to back something like this. And as it becomes more and more mainstream, and eventually you just get the people that buy copies of the games, and you get the younger kids that come in, it's going to transition to having a really large age group. And let's be honest, more of those toxic players tend to be more cocky males that are around, the late teens, early 20s. So as those people move in, we're going to start to get a more, I don't like to use the word, but toxic community. And we're going to get more people that are like, I hate this, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And more negativity is probably the word I should use. And that's just as the community grows. I was thinking, I saw a picture the other day, to give an example. We're only 20,000 accounts off 2 million Star Citizen accounts. And if you go back only...
How many of those are duplicates, too?
Probably heaps. Probably heaps. But even if, let's put it this way, even if only half of them are real, that's still a lot of people. For a game that's not even out yet. So...
Well, unless you're EA, because obviously a million people off your charts is obviously a failure.
Yeah. I don't know. I heard they might be brought out by Microsoft this week. We'll see, huh?
Well, maybe they'll actually... No, never mind. All right. As we devolve into EA bashing.
Yeah.
So
all right. There's a question there by Daniel, and he says, I don't mean to be off topic, but what do you two think of how medical mechanics were described?
Only briefly really paid attention to it, because medical is really not my forte.
They're a bit,
but I like...
They're a little bit bland at the moment. They weren't very descriptive. They didn't go into a lot of detail from what I remember, unless I remembered it correctly. They kind of said they wanted to have, you got your big... This is in a squad-based situation. They wanted to have your big gunners, but you want that guy that when you're down, his job is just to get you out of there. He's to get you back in the fight. They also talked about if you repetitively take injuries, you'll eventually possibly break a bone, and then you have to go to a real medical facility to get fixed. I like how it works. I think that's realistic. That's honestly, like, if you break a limb, you can't get it fixed in the field. You can get it braced, but you got to get out of there. And they were even saying little things like, if you break your leg, you'll have to hobble back to the hospital. You'll walk slower and stuff like that. So yeah,
I like that. They have to encourage a reason for your medical profession to actually exist, because not just your field medics, not just your medipins, but they need to actually have that. Why do I want a Cutlass Red? Because the Cutlass Red has the facilities to actually help mend the person with a broken leg, or at least get them patched up enough to actually get somewhere that they need to go. And that's actually really cool.
They haven't even gone into like think about it logically again. You go into let's use the situation of this guy's broken his leg on a planet. What's it called? The Wambulance? The Cutlass Red. Cutlass Red shows up, and they haven't done this in the game yet. But you know how you have the beds that they use, and they push it in, and the wheels fold up in an ambulance. Yeah, well, you work at a hospital, going to work at a hospital. What do they call them? Gerties. A Gertie. But they would have hover ones in the future or something like that. You know how they're talking about having the hover...
Or are you talking about a crash cart? I'm talking
about the ones that come out of an ambulance. So they would bring the bed thing to you, and it would hover.
Do not quote me on this, because again, I'm not training for that area of the hospital.
Cool. Off topic.
I think you would call it a crash cart.
Anyway, it's just a bed. You know how they have the bed and they push in the back of the into the back of the ambulance and the legs fold up? Do you know what I'm talking about in that regard? Yeah, something like that, but it's a hover version of that, and they would put you on that, then put you into the
Dragonfly,
the Cutlass Red. They'd put you into the Cutlass Red. They would fly you down to the hospital, and then they would push the bed into the place. So when they were talking about hobbling along, chances are you won't ever, unless your friends are bringing you there directly. If you're actually coming in a Cutlass Red, you'll probably come in on a bed or a gurney, as you called it. So that we're talking about systems that they've not even thought of because they're so far down the line. People are just really jumping the gun a lot on this stuff. But if they're going to that level of detail, and if you look at the systems they have talked about, it's only going to get more and more complex as time goes on. You've just got to give them a chance to make it. And the key part of any development is fun. There are some people that really get their kicks off on realism, like flight simulators and aeroplane simulators and stuff like that. But then you get people that prefer their Call of Duties and their Battlefields. And you'll find they'll try and want to strike a balance between the two, but fun always trumps realism.
Well, the thing is, they also want some survival mechanics, so they're going to have to also balance that as well, because not only are we looking at, like, your medical has to actually have reasons, and that's one of the things I like what they're showing. It actually is going to be intense enough that even if let's take combat out of it. You crash on a planet, or you jump off something, you might be looking there and say, I don't want to jump off this because I'm going to break my leg, instead of, oh, I don't want to jump off this because I have to waste a med pen. Well, a med pen is like dirt cheap, and you just go boom and keep going. It's going to make you a little bit more cautious, and it's also going to make the survival mechanics, if I crash a ship, a little bit more, I need rescue, because you'll be patch yourself up bare minimum and then be hobbling around the rest of the time until you can get help. So I personally like that idea, because I actually want to see I crash on a planet, search and rescue type of thing actually be a reality. And this is kind of leaning toward that end, because no offense to combat medics, currently the way the thing goes, I don't think you'll be living long enough for a combat medic to, unless you just get nicked.
You might find that when you shoot someone, they're not downed, and you might even be able to put them in stasis and just drag them out. There's futuristic things you can. It's like when you write a movie, you can use futuristic things to make up the reason for why you can do stuff that you can't do now. So you could get shot in the head, and I put you in stasis and transport you to the hospital, but they can fix you because it's the future, and they use nanos to regrow your brain or whatever. Boom, problem solved. So that there's. You can just use. I'm just giving you an example of how they can use story to get around realism for the sake of gameplay, right? So gameplay always trumps realism, and that's what some people. I have a friend that I'm thinking of in particular, and this friend he always writes the story for a game or a book or whatever that he's thinking up before he makes the game, and that's why he always fails. Because quite simply, I'll give you this example. What's the story for Tetris?
There's a story for Tetris.
There isn't one. You don't need a story for there to be a game, is my whole point. And if you actually look at RPGs, they build the engine before they build the story. They have to have all the tools and all that before then they build that to fit. They don't build the story to fit the game. You can go back through almost every game you've looked at. Half-Life, all those. They build the story to fit the game. And that's why you have these little sequences. A lot of the time you see these games where it's got a level, cinematic, then a level, then a cinematic, because they've built the levels and then put the cinematics in between the game levels to make sense. And when it's done really well, it makes you think it's a complete story, but it's not. But anyway. Alright, we've got one more question, and I think we'll head off after this one.
Will a repaired ship be better than a default one?
I believe I read that repairing the hull can improve its quality. That's contrary to what I've heard. What I heard is that they've also got aging in the game. So if you buy a brand new ship at the showroom, over time it'll look older and older. But when you repair it, you'll never be able to get it to look back like it was brand spanking new. You can buy new parts, but you'd have to replace every single part on the ship to make it look new again. You could
Cutlass versus Freelancer, people. This is a big thing right there. The Cutlass is a Drake ship. The Drake ships are going to be your affordable option to do a lot of things, but the thing is, your affordable option is literally thrown together with spit, duct tape, and prayers, and will break down on you 10 times faster than something like your Freelancer, which is, yes, may not necessarily be your Cutlass jack of all trades, but it does have reliability on its side.
Yeah. So getting back to his question about the repaired chip being better than a default one, I doubt it. I would
say
it.
Not repaired, but modified. I believe the word you're looking for is, instead of repairing a ship, you're talking about modifying a ship to improve its quality, like taking it to a crucible or something.
To give an example, I'm thinking more of the parts. So if you say upgrade from civilian to military as an example, that is one way to improve the ship. But actually,
Science.
Yeah, but actually repairing it, a lot of repairs, like the tool repairs, are only going to be temporary, so you can get back to a port or whatever and repair it properly. A crucible can do proper repairs, and that is the whole reason for that ship. So a port or a crucible are considered the same thing. But I don't think a repaired ship... It might be... Unless you can get big slabs of metal and weld them onto the side, I just don't see it happening. And I don't see them going to that.
That's why I said upgrades, because they did mention with science you could upgrade things. So I feel like
that's through the Endeavor, obviously.
That's something.
But they've also stated that you can do it with modules. So the Hammerhead is one of the few ships that comes with military modules, and then there are other ships like the civilian variant of the Super Hornet. You could actually, if you have that, you can then go get the military components and pretty much turn it into the military variant by
minus hard points.
Yes, obviously, but by swapping the parts over. So yeah, I don't think you can do it with repair, but I think you can do it with the modules. All right, well, that's been our short little live stream today. We're trying to make this a more regular thing, but a lot of us are really busy at the moment, so if we're not as much around as often as you would like, I apologise for that. If you guys have any ideas for a show or any comments that you want to talk about from today's show, please let us know. Yep. Anything else
we try to read them? I said, well, we do read your comments. I do apologise if we haven't been responding like we used to. Again, life has gotten really busy really quick for all of us, so we'll try to get back to a regular schedule as soon as possible, so please bear with us. And we have another episode coming out hopefully fairly soon that we recorded a while back, and we're working on getting edited out. And finally, for those of you wanting our starter ship episode, we do have the last two of those currently we're working on finishing refilming a couple things.
Yeah, because they redid the website and stuff, so we're gonna have to redo those sections. But it shouldn't take too long. All right. Is there anything we got to add? There's just that little spiel that you guys do at the end that I haven't memorized yet.
Please to remember to like and subscribe,
stuff,
and
yeah.
as always, all right, I love the sarcastic voice. Take care.
Bye-bye.
My arm!
You're lucky it's not your face!
Just the two of us.
I'm gonna make you